What's going on, everybody? I hope you're all having a wonderful weekend. And I had a little bit of extra time this afternoon, so I thought I'd go ahead, hop on here, and kind of leave this as an open forum. There's a lot that I have on my mind that I'd want to talk about in regards to Colorado football. We want to talk about Deion Sanders. We want to talk about Big 12, conference realignment, maybe a little bit more about some ideas that Brett Yormark, Coach Prime, the rest of the conference can consider when it comes to growing the Big 12, growing these brands, seeing where we're at. But please feel free to hit a like, let me know if you're in the chat. And yeah, there's some other things that I want to talk about too, a little bit, just kind of on my mind, a little bit apart from football, but talking about Barbie versus Oppenheimer. I've seen both of those movies. And I mean, I have mentioned this throughout this week. Aliens. Aliens, aliens, aliens. We have big aliens news, and it seems like nobody seems to care. I care. I love aliens, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that. Jay Boogie's in the house. Sco Buffs. Thank you so much. But let me just get into this with Barbie and Oppenheimer, and then we can talk some sports. So saw Barbie this past weekend. Loved that. Weekend before that, I saw Oppenheimer, and I gotta say, both movies were really well made. The casts were awesome. I think you're going to see these movies go head to head for a ton of Oscars. But I think if we're talking about which movie I enjoyed the most, it's got to be Barbie. I think from I love the storyline. The cast was phenomenal. I love the songs that were created; those were hilarious. The set design when it comes to making the Barbie Land world, and I just laughed throughout all of it. But Ryan Gosling, um, I think he's going to be going up against Robert Downey Jr. for Best Supporting Cast Member or Best Supporting Actor. And I think you got to give it to Ryan Gosling. Like he was fantastic playing Ken. I don't, might have just mentioned if it was just Barbie, but you guys got to see both of those movies. Both really well made. I enjoyed Oppenheimer, but I also enjoy some of these slow burner shows. I'm a big fan of westerns, so a lot of times those are slow moving and slow developing, and this was kind of like that. And I really enjoyed how Christopher Nolan he will jump through different time periods simultaneously, and that's kind of become his go-to when it comes to storytelling and filmmaking. He doesn't tell linear stories very often. Probably the last movie that he did with that was the whole Batman Dark Knight series. So I encourage you to go and see those movies. They were both great, and I'm hoping that this is kind of a resurgence that we can see in movie theaters. Like I have, it's been depressing the last few years going to movie theaters and being like one of the only people in the movies. I love the fact that for both of these movies that I went and saw, like it was sold out. I was sitting next to people that were, there's people walking all throughout the concourses at these movie theaters, and it feels great to be around people. You know what I'm saying? So, Jackson Moody, dude, you're on fire. Keep up the great work, man. I really do appreciate that. Again, I feel like I'm a little bit different than some of these other YouTubers, journalists, reporters. I could give a shit about breaking news, about having inside sources. Like that's not anything that I feel like I'm ever going to pursue or go after. Like you're just gonna get me and my unfiltered thoughts, just like if you were at the like a sports bar or if you caught me at a coffee shop talking sports. This is kind of the vibe that I'm wanting to go for. Now I do need to find a different background than just this pennant, but honestly I just don't care to go about it yet. There's some other things that I want to invest in with the profits from this channel, and we'll see how all that goes. But I appreciate all the support. We have so much to talk about too with conference realignment, and I want to get into that. I recorded a video that I'll probably post later today, maybe tonight, specifically about this, so y'all go check that out. But I'm just going to give you the synopsis of it right now. I talked a little bit about it on my interview with Prime Sports Media yesterday, but when it comes to conference expansion, who's going to be the next team to to join Colorado and joining the Big 12. It's looking like it's Arizona, but after that, man, I would really love for the Big 12 to pursue Oregon and Washington. These are big time brands. They're big time programs with both football and basketball. And then you also have Phil Knight behind there at Nike. He is the primary donor to the University of Oregon. There is a fund set up. There's a fund set up to continue to fund the university even after he passes. So Nike and Oregon are always going to be tied. And Tim Fitzgerald, who I had the pleasure of meeting yesterday on Jason Watkins' show for Hall of Fame Media, he brought up this idea of maybe pitching to Oregon, this kind of Jordan-esque Air Jordan type pitch to join the conference, because we know that they want to go to the Big Ten. Heck, CU, we would have automatically taken a Big Ten invite if we had really gotten it, right? And it seems like there is a little bit of interest between the Big Ten and Oregon. I don't know if there's enough to get the votes passed for expansion, but, Big Ten can offer more TV money. So Big 12, we're going to have to get creative. And as I've brought this up, we got to move away from the Big 12 name. We have more than 12 members. Let's make the Big Ten look foolish for their tradition and prestige by keeping the Big Ten number 10. It's just ridiculous in college athletics to be named, with a certain number that isn't reflective of the number of teams in your conference anymore. That is just, it's ridiculous. And it comes off as honestly, really dumb. It's the Big 12. We got to change the name. We got to rebrand. We got to give a new name that gives hype to what's going on here, because people are always going to associate the Big 12 with just not being good enough. Exactly. So what do? We go to Oregon and say, yes, the Big 10 can offer you more money. However, they're not going to rebrand the conference for Nike. They're not going to make sure that every school in the conference is a Nike school. What about the Nike Athletic Conference? Something like that, where you're funneling more money in, you're selling the naming rights to Nike to where they can provide this sponsorship for the entire conference under that Nike umbrella. And in doing so, you're funneling more money through Nike to Oregon. And I think some schools might have an issue with this, especially when you're inviting a new school in to come in and somebody associated with that program is then rebranding the whole conference. But I like the entrepreneurial aspect that Brett Yormark is bringing. Let's erase the lines. Let's try new things. Let's think outside the box. That's the only way this conference is ever going to be up there to compete with SEC and the Big Ten, and it's by using their prestige and their love for tradition against them. They would never be okay with that. Just like CU, they're okay with Coach Prime coming in here selling all this CU branded stuff, but with his brand at the forefront of it. There are a lot of schools that wouldn't be comfortable and okay with that have better tradition, larger fan bases, brands that are bigger than CU. We're comfortable with that. And I think in doing so, I would be really comfortable seeing Brett Yormark sell the naming rights to a company like Nike. Imagine, we have these Nike invitationals for college basketball. We have that are done in Vegas. That's the one thing that I really love about the Pac-12 that they've been doing recently, is doing some of the conference stuff in Vegas, having some of the conference championship. You're having that in Vegas. Let's do some more stuff in Vegas. Again, you don't have to have UNLV in the conference to do that, just like the Big 12 has. And Vegas is awesome. They're a booming sports city with the Raiders there now, the Golden Knights having a Stanley Cup title, and it's looking like the Oakland Athletics are going to be making that move here within the next couple years to Las Vegas as well. And with NBA expansion, Seattle and Las Vegas seem to be the primary targets. It's important for us and Brett Yormark to start getting in that Vegas Showtime market a little bit more. I think it's perfect. So anyways, thank you for listening to me. I want to say hi to everybody in the chat. We got Jonathan Bernard. What's up, man? Thank you for tuning in. Jackson Moody. That's so true. Name change would be awesome. Yeah. And, like I said yesterday, the conference, it's really in an interesting standpoint. I'll name off kind of all the brands that we got right now. We got BYU, we got CU, Texas Tech, TCU, Baylor, University of Houston, Kansas, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Iowa State. And then on the East Coast, we have Cincinnati, West Virginia, and UCF. And all of those brands, like they're good college football programs. They have solid fan bases, solid followings, but they've all been kind of behind the shadows of larger programs. Particularly with a lot of these Big 12 holdovers, they've been behind the shadows of OU and UT. You have BYU, University of Houston, UCF, Cincinnati, teams that have had success, but they haven't been playing at the highest level, and so they have a chip on their shoulder with something to prove. We have CU that's been behind the shadows of USC, UCLA, Utah, a lot of other basically every program in the Pac-12 because we've been so sorry. And now we have the chance as a rising brand to really prove ourselves and make a name for ourselves again. And that's kind of the feel of the entire conference. We all kind of have something to prove now that we don't have to hide, or we're not stuck behind the curtain of these larger than life college football brands. And it's going to be really cool to see kind of who rises to the top of the conference. What do you think of the idea of the ACC and Big 12 combining? I mean, I would love that. I do think that this would just be my theory. Like if I was running the conference, this is how I would want to do things. You go ahead and get Arizona. I think that there's enough smoke with Arizona. There's enough interest. When you're talking about the criteria that Brett Yormark has stated to evaluate on adding teams to the conference, you're wanting commitment. You're wanting you're just wanting that reciprocation of interest. Arizona has that. Even though they're not a big-time football brand, they're a big-time basketball brand, and I think their football could grow being in this conference. So you add them. That gets us to 14. You go after Oregon and Washington because I do think that there's a pitch you can make to them saying like, hey, just join us right now. It's going to be better than the next 5 years or whatever. If you're the Pac 8, Pac 9, or if you're adding a bunch of Mountain West schools, you're going to get more money with us. Don't worry about the fact that they might leave later on for a Big Ten invite. Let's make sure we get them now and worry about the now. We can't stress about what will happen later. We just got to focus on making sure that they're happy and that we give them some of that autonomy and that agency that I was just talking about to maybe do some different things that the Big Ten and SEC want to be comfortable with. So then you got 16 schools. Everybody's been talking about how with these super conferences, you want to get to those 20 schools. I think this is kind of ridiculous. Like maybe as someone of a college football purist, I don't like the idea of like having these super conferences, but that's the way in which we're going, right? So you got 4 spots, okay? And with this ACC deal, let me go ahead and pull up the map so I don't leave any schools out, right? But I think it's pretty clear that FSU is going to be the first team to leave from this conference, and I mean the SEC and the Big Ten would probably have first dibs on a school like that, on a program like that. But when you're looking at some of these other schools, maybe the Big 12 can make a pitch to snatch 4 of these Big 12 schools, such as I think Louisville's a great fit. They're solid at both basketball and football. They're kind of in that Eastern Midwestern, if that makes sense, spot kind of within the country. Close to Cincinnati, so there would be a travel partner. So I think like they would be a great brand to go after. Another one looking at too, University of Miami. Like, man, I would love the Miami Hurricanes to be in the Big 12 because I love Miami. I mean, growing up, they're one of the biggest programs in college football. So exciting to watch again. Clinton Portis, one of my favorite childhood players, was a Denver Bronco and then went to the Washington Redskins. But would love Miami to move into the Big 12. And I think that you need another school in Florida to pair with UCF. Now, maybe it's more likely that it's a school like University of South Florida. I'm not really sure what the interest is at the Big Ten and SEC level to have Miami there because, again, even though there's hype around them, there's Mario Cristobal's there right now, they've kind of been a program that seems to have always kind of fallen flat to expectations over the last maybe 10, 15 years too. And, they could come to the Big 12 with something to prove and be right there, I think, with a lot of the teams. So that'd be 2 schools, Louisville and then Miami. And then I think with Clemson, again, I think that they would be another school that would probably have more interest from the Big Ten and SEC. So let's take a look at basketball and football. I think, I mean, man, you got a lot of good choices. Pitt, Syracuse is out there. Duke, North Carolina, North Carolina State, and NC State, Wake Forest. I think that you can get two more of those teams to join, and that would make 20. That would be a lot of fun. I think North Carolina, obviously with Mac Brown, their program's on the rise. Drake May is a wonderful quarterback that's going to be drafted maybe even day one in the NFL draft this coming year. And then Duke, obviously there isn't a bigger combination of basketball brands than Duke and North Carolina kind of together, bringing them in. They'd pair very well, with having a school like Kansas and having Arizona here. Baylor, a lot of good basketball schools, obviously, in the Big 12. So that's kind of how I would want to see it develop. But, I'm very critical of college basketball, as you've probably heard me talk about. I like the idea of growing basketball, but you got to change some things with the game. And if you're a basketball guy, anybody listening, please let me know in the comments after you hit that like, of course, what your thoughts are on college basketball, because Brett Yormark, he's very close with Adam Silver. He talks with him frequently. I would hope that he would move, not only start promoting the Big 12 in more of an NBA way, creating storylines, promoting personalities, promoting players along with the brands, but you got to change the game, man, to be more friendly to the NBA viewer. I am a typical guy that's I watch 2 weeks of March Madness and that's really about it. Well, I probably watch more CU basketball this year. One, because of this channel, and two, because we have a top 5 guy coming in here, Cody Williams at small forward, that's consistently mocked next year in the NBA draft in the top 5. Yes, I will. But the game, you gotta change some of the rules. Go from 5 fouls to 6 fouls. We don't want to see players foul out. Go from 2 halves to 4 quarters, like every other level of basketball. You got to change the spacing so that that way the pacing of the game will change to be more open, more NBA friendly. We'll have more scoring because of that, and change the way in which the game is called to be more similar to the NBA. I don't know if Brett Yormark has the power to change how Big 12 basketball would be played compared to the rest of the NCAA. But if I'm Brett Yormark, I don't care. If teams need to go back and play to this old school college basketball way when March Madness comes, that's fine, or these out-of-conference games, whatever. But I would like to see a more NBA friendly game in college basketball, and I think you would grow the brand of this conference. Say it's called the Nike Athletic Conference. If you're playing more NBA style, more G League style branded basketball, and then you're going to have prospects that are going to want to come over here and play. If they're not going to play for the G League, if they're not going overseas to play in the NBL in Australia, such as LaMelo Ball, for instance, they can come here and play in this conference, play for CU, and know that they're going to be playing in a league that has direct, how do I say it? It plays more directly into the NBA. You're going to be playing with that style, that pacing. So I want to know your thoughts on that. But I like the idea of trying to grow basketball. But we just got to change the game a little bit more. Old school. How's it going? Thanks for tuning in, Troy Polamalu. Do you think Zion Williamson will quit the NBA to pursue dream being a porn star? Nah, man. I'm a big fan of Zion Williamson. I think that obviously when you get that sort of money, being that young, you can make some really dumb decisions. And a lot of us, we make decisions when we're younger that are really stupid, even without the money. So. You got to learn some hard lessons sometimes on who you can trust versus who you can't. And, I did see an interview with him. I think it might have was on Gilbert Arenas' show maybe a few weeks ago, where Zion Williamson was on there. dude's looking slim. He's looking fit. He talked a lot about, um, having to learn those lessons of changing his diet. And I think he looks like he's in very good shape. So we'll see. I do think that New Orleans, they don't have the best reputation of keeping their stars around. And I think that he could really benefit from a change of scenery, being around some proven veterans that have done it. Yes, I know he has C.J. McCollum there now, but um, he's never kind of been at that star level that Zion's even been at right now. I'm really rooting for him to get it together and prove the haters wrong this year again. When he is healthy, he's one of the most exciting players in the NBA and one of the most productive. Um, because you can bet on him getting a double double right there, and he can pass. Like, people don't realize like how good of a passer he is, and he's still young. What is he? 21, 22 years old? Maybe he's 23, but still plenty of time before he hits his prime. And I'm really rooting for him, and hopefully some of these things that have happened in his life, being a father. I don't know if that stuff with Mariah Mills was ever confirmed about her being pregnant too, but fatherhood can change you, and in a lot of good ways. And so hopefully these things that he's experiencing right now, he uses this to really become better. And that's what I'm hoping to see, because I'm a big fan of his game and I love watching him. And he was one of the few players that got me watching college basketball outside March Madness for a period of time. So we'll have to see. But I'm a fan of Zion Williamson. Again, it's easy to kick guys when they're down. Um, yeah, so we'll see. Lakers will sign LaMelo. LaMelo just signed an extension, so they can't do that. They could trade for him, but why the hell would you trade him if you're the Hornets? And who the hell do you trade if you're the Lakers? It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Lakers, because I think AD and LeBron will, maybe they leave LA around the same time, but they're going to be a darn good team this year. The Lakers are. They had a great offseason. They put around a lot of complementary pieces to what they already had this past year. And we'll see. We'll see. But I think they're going to be up there within the top four teams of the conference this year. And I really hope the Nuggets get a chance to play them in the playoffs again. I don't want to shy away from any of those contenders. And another team that I'm really big on is the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think that Anthony Edwards is the truth. He's a rising star. Although the Nuggets won that series in 5 games, I do think that they were the toughest series for the Nuggets. So we'll just have to see what happens there. But in terms of the Big 12, CU's fit there. It really makes me happy to see that we're going back again. I haven't been a big supporter of going back to the Big 12 the entire time over this past year, but I think it's been clear that the Pac-12, we have enough evidence, like, throughout our time within the conference, that this conference is known for talking big and having no action. All talk, no action, and that's exactly what has happened with this conference. They can talk all they want about putting together a deal that's going to be competitive. And again, that's what I said in like February. If we can get a deal that is somewhat similar to the Big 12, why move? But again, these guys, this conference, these presidents, they've been all about talking with no action. They've had so many opportunities to hold leverage, to be the aggressor, to go after and do some things. And I think that there's been universities and presidents of these universities that have gotten in the way of allowing us at the Pac-12 to take that necessary action to grow the conference, to grow some stability. And it just wasn't happening. And it again, as I've been able to see how Coach Prime has been moving this year, and it just makes so much sense to pair with the Big 12 and Brett Yormark, and because we hear so often the Pac-12, well, this brand, the CU's brand, is nothing without Coach Prime, and so we can't evaluate their TV market like they have Coach Prime. Well, reality check, we do have Coach Prime, and the views that we've been able to see, even in the offseason, compared to the legacy brands of the Pac-12, have blown it out of the water. And Brett Yormark, he is. It's just funny, man. Like this is simple stuff. This is common sense, and common sense isn't so common, especially with the Pac-12. And you've been able to see him understand that CU is a rising brand, that there are going to be the main bases that are going to be watching CU football moving forward are coming from Texas and Florida. And those are huge markets, and it's obvious that he needed to get them, the Buffaloes, that is, in this conference. And it's a damn shame what has happened with the Pac-12, but it's going to be very ironic because you're going to be having schools such as Stanford or Cal doing business case studies on the failure of their own conference, and kind of how they got in each other. They got in their own way, and where Brett Yormark is going to be a case study on how to revitalize something that might seem dead or outdated, to innovate, to renovate, to energize, to re-energize, through approaching things aggressively through a creative lens and not being afraid to fail or look at things with a different criteria compared to how other conferences have done it in the past, right? So we're just going to have to see about that. Let's see. Troy Polamalu, I know you're trolling. Wilson will lead us to the promised land this season. Super Bowl champs, baby. No, Denver's not winning a Super Bowl this year, but if we can take a step to get towards a winning record, that would be awesome. Nebraska 40, Colorado 7. You're out of your mind. Nebraska was almost just as bad as CU was last year. And while they have recruited, I think, pretty well in the transfer portal, Matt Rule was dealing with a foundation that still has a lot to go, even compared to where CU's at right now. And this is simple stuff, man. Like, usually which team has the better quarterback is going to end up winning. I think Jeff Sims isn't anywhere near where Shador is, quarterback level wise. So, I think that's ridiculous. Now, maybe you could argue that, Nebraska obviously would have a better chance winning if they were playing in Lincoln, but they're here in Boulder too. So you got to come up with some more interesting takes, because I feel like you've just been saying those things this entire time. And I mean, you've been our honorary troll for what, 6 months now, 5-6 months now. You got to come up with some better takes. Rather than just saying Nebraska's going to beat CU, I would expect better from you right now. Let's see, man. What else is there to talk about? I feel like we're so desensitized to tragic things in this society that nobody cares about the alien news. We had a military officer testify against to Congress this week that aliens are real, and nobody cares about it. Of course, these media companies aren't really pumping out that info because they don't want us to know. But man, life forms outside of Earth is something that I've always thought was probable. And it seems like, all right, if we got aliens here, they figured out to kind of how to utilize wormholes or rip through the fabric of space-time and get here. Study Einstein's theory of relativity. It's interesting stuff. Rumesh Lance, what's your over-under for CU this season? The over-under, I think right now, is still 3.5 wins for like the sports books. And I bet over that. I would say if I had to put an over-under for this team, I would put it at 5.5. And maybe that's a little bit conservative towards what I've said of like what I've hoped that CU gets to this year, but I think obviously there are a lot of different scenarios that could play out. But I can generally see a path to 6 wins. Definitely, I think the biggest wild card is going to be how is this team going to gel? How are they going to play on the road? There's a lot of moving parts that sometimes you just need time to understand how to make this a well-oiled machine. And they are playing, 5 teams that won double-digit games last year, but at the same time, you do have schools like Arizona, Arizona State, Stanford, CSU, Nebraska. Those are 5 teams right there that had terrible years last year, terrible losing records last year, and I think that we should be able to win those games if this team is as good as I think it can be, right? Now, there's also, I think we play Washington State this year, and although they were 7-5, they played a bunch of freaking cupcakes in their non-conference schedule, and they got their ass beat in the Pac-12 this past year, and I think that that's going to be a competitive game with them. So there's definitely a path to where this team can get to a bowl game, even if it is the Pop-Tarts Bowl or I guess it wouldn't be this year, the SpongeBob SquarePants Bowl. It doesn't exist, but y'all get what I'm saying. Like, any game that we get to for a bowl game, it's going to matter a lot to me, just because we haven't seen CU win a bowl game in forever. So, Jackson Moody, I think they will win no less than 10 games, man. I mean, I love that energy. I think that's great, but again, we play Oregon at Oregon. They're better than they were last year. They have a big-time quarterback coming back with Bo Nix, and so that kind of erases maybe the quarterback advantage that we could have with Shedeur against some of these other schools that I just named off. And they're bringing in some big-time defensive transfers and recruits that you normally don't see these types of bodies coming to the Pac-12. These are SEC, Big Ten caliber level talented players playing on the defense. You have USC, which, man, like, that game means a lot to me, especially this is going to be the last time that we probably play them in a very long time. We're 0-16 against them all time. And, they have the Heisman winner coming back with adding some pieces that should help out that just god-awful defense that they had last year. Now, again, they're playing here in Boulder, so I'm not going to count us out. But if you're talking about 10 wins, you got to basically win every game outside of what are we doing? Playing a 12-game conference schedule. You have to win every game outside of those two. There's a very small margin for error, and that means you're going up against a school like Utah and beating them. And they have their veteran quarterback coming back, Cam Rising, coming back for a big-time year, going for a third straight conference title. And I just can't bet right now. If I'm betting money, I can't bet that we're going to beat 2 out of those 3 schools right now. I just don't think that that's going to happen. So we're just going to have to see. Let's see. Last year's record doesn't matter for anyone. That's why we lace them up. Yeah, absolutely. And don't get me wrong. Like, the level of athlete that this team has is night and day different than than where we were at last year. And you see it with most of those transfers going G5, going FCS. And if they did stay Power 5, most of them stayed in the Pac-12. To me, it's just, I still feel like with the offensive and defensive lines, like, we still have work to do to get towards being at the top of this conference for this year. Again, if there's a conference where we can get away with kind of having average to slightly above average line play and be one of those schools at the top, it is the PAC, but I still think that right now, there's still so many question marks for me with our front seven, and I am more bullish on our front seven and offensive line, obviously, than I was last year, but I'm still unsure of it if it can be kind of at that elite level within the conference to compete this year with Oregon, with Washington, with Utah, with USC, with those schools. We play a school like UCLA, which, they might have a true freshman starting at quarterback, but again, they had a really great year last year. They are missing Charbonnet, who went to the NFL, to the Seahawks. But those games are winnable, but they're also these are games that I feel like are toss-ups. UCLA will probably come in here as a favorite before the season starts, and I think that while I'm very bullish on this team, I think long term, I think 2024 is where I'm really going to raise my expectations to, like, I want to see us win. Uh, double digit games in 2024. Now, we are going to a conference in the Big 12 where there are going to be no cakewalks. Every single team that we face, they're going to punch us in the mouth, and we better punch back. We better dictate that sort of physical dominance that's going to be needed to win within this conference, because even teams like Kansas, that have been sorry. They've recommitted to their football program, or committed for the first time, and their quality, they're strong now. There are no cakewalks. Excuse me. Within the Big 12, again, I'll name off these schools: BYU, Texas Tech, TCU, Baylor, Houston, Oklahoma State, Kansas, Iowa State, Cincinnati, West Virginia, UCF. UCF's on the uptrend with Gus Malzahn there. It's again, this is something that I haven't really seen in my lifetime. Again, I understand the criticism that Coach Prime can do what he does in terms of getting that talent and dominating, the HBCU level. He's getting guys, again, that are more talented. He's bringing in more depth than he brought in, I think, at Jackson State. But again, this is another level of football. All your opponents, they're going to have better coaches, and they're going to have deeper talent. And I don't think it's realistic to just expect that we're going to come in here and at a higher level and win 10 games when there was no foundation at all. I think we gotta, even if you do think that we're gonna win 10 games, at least hold that in the back of your mind, that there is a chance that we don't reach that, because I don't want Buffs Nation feeling like we're entitled for anything right now. This is still a program. We have to go out and prove ourselves, and we have a lot to be excited about. We have a lot going in the right direction. But we got to see where this team, how they perform against the competition. We haven't seen that yet. And I think we do need to prepare ourselves for multiple scenarios, where just like Bill Carroll, the NFL draft scout, who doesn't have like any emotional bias towards this program, but very knowledgeable of the roster, he said, I think that there are going to be hiccups early on with this team of learning how to play together, because it is such a large turnover. And I think that's fair. You can disagree with it. I think that I disagree with him to some extent. I don't think it's going to be as disastrous as maybe some people think, where we're only winning 3 games. But even if that's the scenario, that's a big improvement from where we were last year. And I think that we got to handle some perspective. And if we bring that perspective into this year, we're going to enjoy it a hell of a lot than having some unrealistic expectations like we're going to be in the college football playoff next year. So, Nicholas Braxton, good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Coach Prime will be ready by 2024. Travis and Cormani will be nice outside. You have Brandon Davis-Swain, yes, Omar White, and Eric Brantley coming on the defense. Absolutely, CU offense will be nice. Coach Prime will do wonders with Texas recruiting. Rumesh, you are absolutely right there. Nicholas, man, let me just hit on the 2024 class. Yeah, right now it's quality over quantity. I think we got like 7 guys committed, and that's only going to grow, as we put some wins on the board here. Heck, maybe Charles Lester reconsiders if we go to a bowl game, right? But yeah, obviously we've opened up the Florida pipeline like crazy. But Dallas, Texas, this is where Coach Prime has spent most of his life, most of his career. And there are a lot of Prime fans in Texas. Again, there are going to be more people in Texas watching the Buffaloes than people in Colorado themselves, just because Texas is a huge state population wise. DFW has a larger population than the entire state of Colorado. And you're going to have families, parents of players that want their child to go play for Prime. It's a big deal. And I mean, I just love that we're going to have the opportunity to go to Lubbock, to Fort Worth, to Waco, to Houston, to play these fan bases that are so passionate about football. And these players in Texas, they're going to fall in love with what's happening here. Absolutely. Nicholas Braxton says, "I believe CU will be bowl eligible. I got them 6-6, but it could be better depending on the O line and D line." Absolutely. There are multiple scenarios. Like there is because again, TCU they did lose a lot of players towards the NFL this past year. So like there is a scenario where I could see us beating TCU, beating Nebraska, beating Colorado State to then go out to Oregon as a 3-0 team. Now, again, Oregon and USC back to back, those are going to be hard games to win. But I think the one thing is that even if we're losing games, like we're not going to be getting just destroyed and blown out and losing games by 35 points like we were this past year, 40 points. These are going to be entertaining games. And sometimes, even though we got a quarterback and some other players who seem to be very composed in stressful, tight situations, we're going to see this team grow in some of those situations, those pressure situations as the season goes on. And that's going to be fun to see. Like, let's be sure to appreciate the growth. Those first few weeks, it's really going to give us a baseline for where this team is at. And then we can measure the improvement as time goes on. It's going to be an awesome year to watch Buffs football. And to enjoy football, it doesn't mean it needs to come with double-digit wins and competing for a national title with where we're at. Like, there's so much to enjoy about this football season without double-digit wins happening. So I'm hoping that when you come to my channel, I can provide some perspective because we are going to get hit in the mouth. There are going to be disappointing weeks. And just like this team is going to have to take that, learn from it, and understand it. So are we. We're going to have to grow and learn with this team as the season goes on. But yeah, like if the D line and the O line, if they come out and they're rock stars, man, there's definitely scenarios and possibilities where we're up there competing for the Pac-12 title. But again, I think a lot of people are coming in here watching this team, really not aware of how good the teams at the top of this conference are. Like USC, Oregon, Washington, Utah are all damn good. And if they were located in Georgia, there'd be a lot more hype around them than where they're located, right now, obviously, on the West Coast. That's just true. There is a lot of bias. And I think that some of y'all are going to be surprised by the level of competition within this conference. Because if you take out the Big Ten and the SEC, you know who had the third most ranked opponents by the end of the year? It was the Pac-12. The basement, how many games we win depends upon the pass rush and pass protection. Absolutely. It depends on the lines, and the line can take a while to gel. But what's great is that our entire offensive line, I believe, still has multiple years of eligibility. So we're going to be able to grow together. Oh, Timothy West. I don't think I've seen you before. Correct me if I'm wrong, but good to see you. Thanks for chiming in. This is a cool comment. Your Mark already has rebranding schedule for 2024. Awesome. Back when the Big 12, because the Big 12, what? Sorry, they've licensed the Big 14 and Big 16, which is why the Big 10 hasn't been able to change theirs to the Big 14. Gotcha. Okay. thank you. So it looks like we have licensed those names. I just kind of hope we go away from that. I really like the idea of getting rid of the big stuff. I don't give a shit about that. Sell the naming rights to a athletic company like Nike, and really have a big time branding partner with the conference, with all the programs. You'll get uniforms quicker. You'll get cooler swag quicker. I really like that idea that Tim Fitzgerald, insider for KSU, pitched yesterday. I really love that idea. Y'all let me know what you think. Rumesh Lance will be there for a KSU CU old rivalry in 2024. Yeah, man, I think that's probably the opponent I'm most excited to play again, just because we do have that rivalry. A lot of big time games. We've fought for and battled for within the conference, and now with CU moving back to the Big 12, I believe KSU and CU are tied for the most conference championships within the Big 12. And man, yeah, Manhattan isn't too far away. It's probably the same distance or close to for like BYU or Salt Lake City if University of Utah is added. And having that close proximity is going to be great. It really means something, I think, with CU becoming better and more competitive. It really means something to have, going against fan bases and teams that are quality, because I think we're going to be able to develop some great rivalries. And I think there's a lot of respect there. I think there's a lot of appreciation for us coming back into the conference. And I look forward to being your frenemy. I look forward to helping build this conference into something, but at the same time, look forward to, really fighting out our differences and going head to head with these recruiting battles in the off season, and then seeing this play out on the field. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I think as CU starts to win some games, I think you'll see more Big 12 fans probably hate us more, because we do have an outspoken coach. We are bringing in some prime time level players, but that's just the name of the game. Like, we've been out of it for so long. We're not hated by anybody. We're just a joke. Nobody cares when they play us. It's going to be great to have that feeling again, where whether you love us or hate us, you care. So we'll just have to see. I will be laughing at my couch every time Colorado and Prime lose, whatever. Troy Polamalu, that is wonderful, because we benefit from your hatred. We really benefit from all the eyeballs, just like some of the trolls that come in here into my channel. I benefit at a monetary level for your support, and I greatly appreciate it. So, yeah, that's, just like when you're selling a fight. Like, there were wonderful fights in the UFC yesterday, but you need a heel. You need a guy to hate. You need a team that you want to see destroyed, and we can be that. We can be that hated team for other teams in the conference, for other fan bases. And sports is more fun when you have people and teams to root for and root against. And I'm happy that CU can finally be one of those teams, no matter what side of the spectrum that they're on. So I appreciate you guys checking out my live stream. Hit me up with some more questions here. I think I'll go for a few more minutes. And then we making you rich, bro? You are not, but it has been fun to make a little bit of money on the side. And that's gone towards, helping pay off some car repairs that I've had to do with my SUV, and some different things. Again, like, I bought like a 10 ticket Nuggets package earlier this week for a few $100 for me and my wife to go to 10 games. So yeah, like, I'm thankful for YouTube. It helped pay for my summer league trip and all of that, or help pay for part of it. So yeah, y'all are giving me the opportunity to really do some cool things, to have some great experiences, to buy tickets for this USC game that I'm going to, but also like handle some life stuff on my end. Pay off a little bit of debt, fix my car, which still needs a little bit of fixing, but I'm there, and I think some of the next steps are maybe like a computer. We'll see with my work, with assigning a new client. I think I should be able to get a new MacBook, because y'all have probably seen that I've had some issues with that. My MacBook is like almost 10 years old now, so even though I got a lot of memory available on it, I've erased a lot of things. I got like half the storage available. The software upgraded. It's still just, I feel like, kind of on its last legs. So we're just going to have to see how that goes. Rumesh, I'm projecting a 6-6 season for Coach Prime. Do you have a game by game breakdown? No. Let me go ahead and I'll come out with like my official schedule prediction here like later this year, but I'll give you what I think like right now for like a path. I think like the path to 6 games. Like if we were talking 6 games, the most winnable I think they are, or like I'll just kind of go in order right here. Nebraska, CSU, Arizona State, Stanford. So that's 4 right there. Then Arizona and Washington State. Those are 6 wins right there. Now you could get above that if you're able to beat a team like TCU that's had some turnover, and UCLA that might have a freshman quarterback, and then you get yourself to 8 wins right there. I think if you need to get to 9 wins, then like Oregon State is a team that I think that they could beat. But Oregon State's coming off a really good year, and we'll have to see. I do think that they still upgraded at the quarterback position, and sometimes, again, a change of scenery for these guys can be extremely beneficial. We've seen what it did for Joe Burrow, going from Ohio State to LSU, right? Or like, come on, who's the South Carolina quarterback that was there that got beat out by Caleb Williams? The guy's kind of an ass, but he had a great year at South Carolina last year. But I think, yeah, like Utah, USC, Oregon, those are going to be really hard games to win. And so I think probably the ceiling for this team realistically, if you're kind of looking at like the 20 to 80%, probability, if you're looking at a probability curve, everything kind of within that probability curve is maybe 9 wins kind of at the end of that, if we take care of business aside from those top programs. But I think Oregon State's going to be a tough team. UCLA, again, still a ranked team from last year, and we'll have to see what they do at the quarterback position. But Chip Kelly's a coach that I really do believe in. But I think, 6 games: Nebraska, CSU, Arizona State, Stanford, Arizona, and Washington State. Those are the 6 games that they really need to take care of business with. And heck, maybe they can surprise one of those other teams that did have those double-digit wins last year and get to 7 wins. But so that's why I kind of put the line at 5.5. Brad Stevens says, I think 5-6 wins would be great. We just don't have enough in the trenches yet. Yeah, and that's okay. Rome was not built overnight, right? And, of course, we've seen what TCU did last year. But, again, they've had that Big 12 line talent coming in there already. There was already a pipeline of good recruiting coming in there, at least a decent level of recruiting coming in there, where CU, we had a G5 level of recruiting before Prime got here. There just isn't that sort of line talent here yet in terms of depth. Flyboy Brass. Anything's possible if the Buffs get off to a great start. Momentum is real, absolutely. And heck, if this team really does gel as quick as some think, I mean, yeah, you're right. We could be right up there because again, we do have some big time athletes. I'm not worried about us at the running back and wide receiver position at all. I'm not worried about us at the quarterback. I'm worried about our tight end position, where we're at there. Even from a blocking standpoint, I am. And we'll just have to see about the offensive line. With the defensive line, it's really just the talent is there. But aside from, our top three pass rushers, I really don't know what to think of about the rest of this defensive line. There are guys that I'm bullish on, like Bishop Thomas. But again, we gotta see. We haven't seen it yet. And yeah, I'm not really worried about the secondary. So safety and corner, I think we're going to be just fine. But can we get to the quarterback? Can we stop the run? Washington, UCLA, Oregon, Utah, like these teams really do run the ball a lot, and they're gonna try and punch us in the mouth with that run, and we gotta stop it, and we'll just have to see. But yeah, I'm trying to have some tempered expectations because again, there were some question marks, and I don't see any red flags with this team, but there are definitely red flags with the Broncos last year, and I just disregarded it because it's like, hey, we got Russell Wilson, and I think my expectations going into the year really ruined my ability to enjoy the year, really at all. But there wasn't much to cheer about, right? I mean, that was just ugly football, and at least we got coaches here that are capable, which they didn't. Nicholas Braxton, I got Shador having a nice season as long as that offensive line gives him time and he'll put up a lot of points. Yeah, especially, if we are down in some of these games, we're going to be throwing the ball a lot. I do think that Bo Nix, what was it? 3,600 yards, 28 touchdowns, less than 10 picks. I think that Shador could have that type of season. Give me 3,600 yards, 30 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He's an accurate quarterback. I think he's going to have a really good year. I really do. And 2024 is where it all needs to come together. So, man, I appreciate you guys taking time to talk with me. I appreciate every single one of you. If you've just found my channel, I really appreciate you checking it out. And please consider subscribing if you haven't. I try and give you daily Buffs content. Might not be every day, but definitely 5-6 videos throughout the week for the most part. And I mean, this is just the start. I got some great things planned for the season that y'all are going to be really surprised about, that y'all should be really pumped about, but I'm not going to tell it yet. And, fall camp's going to start soon. So here we go. But anyways, hit that like. Let me know in the comments what you think if you're watching this replay. And let me know your thoughts on Barbie versus Oppenheimer as well. And as always, Sco Buffs.